Welcome everyone who's in this Hangout today and to everyone who's viewing this via our stream. My name is Lisa Ding and I am the Community Manager for Blogger. And today we'll be talking about using Blogger in the classrooms, and we have joining us Ben Curran, who is a Google Apps certified teacher, to give the presentation today. I'm just going to give a little quick intro about why we're here today. This is part of the Education on Air conference. It's the first one that we've ever had, and we wanted to use the technology that we have with Google Plus on Air, particularly Hangouts on Air, to allow people such as Ben, who are very familiar with our products and who have used it in his daily work and life, and to be able to show other people how they can use it as well. I've been told that we have 46 Hangouts on Air happening today. Okay, so now it's time to introduce Ben. Ben is a 5th grade teacher in Detroit, and Ben, would you like to tell us how you've been using Blogger?
Sure. Welcome everybody. I want to thank you for joining in both in the Hangout and on the live stream. I'm real excited to be here, and I want to thank Google in Education for inviting me to broadcast here today. I hate to correct you first thing, Lisa, but I am not a Google certified teacher, so I don't want no, that's okay. I just don't want anyone thinking that I am. I do teach 5th grade in Detroit, Michigan, and I have been teaching there at my school for about 7 years. I've been teaching altogether for going on 12 years now, and I've taught all grades from 3 through 8th. I wanted to invite everybody to make sure that you add comments in the chat, but also if you're watching the live stream, to do what Lisa said and leave a question or a comment, and we'll make sure you get into the conversation. Also, if you're in the Hangout with me, feel free to jump in with a question or a comment at any time. I don't mind being interrupted at all. Finally, there's a handout that covers a lot of this stuff, so you don't have to worry about taking notes. It covers a lot of the nuts and bolts of getting set up with Blogger, and I'll share that handout at the end. Don't let me forget to do that. I forgot my the other hat that I wear that I wanted to talk about just for a second is I've been working as a co-founder of a company called Engaging Educators, and we do professional development for teachers online and face-to-face, and so really working to share as much of what I've done in my own classroom with teachers everywhere. So I'm sort of here under both umbrellas today. Let me give everybody a chance to sort of introduce themselves. I'd love to hear where you're from, what position you're in or positions you're in, and maybe your experience blogging. Have you blogged before? What are you using to blog? And just talk a little bit about that. Let's talk to Roland here first. Go ahead, Roland. Welcome.
Thanks. My name is Roland Rios. I'm the Director of Instructional Technology in the Fort Sam Houston Independent School District. We're a small school district right in the middle of San Antonio, Texas, and we serve the military dependents of the Fort Sam Houston military installation. I've been in the current position for, this is my 5th year. We are a Google Apps school. Really started pushing it this year. Next year we're going to a one-to-one Chromebook initiative with our high school. We'll be deploying 450 Chromebooks and really pushing our Google Apps for education. I do have a blog. I call it a tiny blog, like a blogette. I mean, it's a full-blown blog. I'm Blogger. Don't have a mess load of followers. You know, I got to compete with Miguel Gulen down here in San Antonio, and most people have followed Miguel's blog forever. But, you know, I've got my teachers follow me. A lot of the community here does. cybercafeblog.com is my blog. I love Blogger. It's a great tool.
Good, thank you. And hopefully if I'm missing anything, you'll add in, since you're a fellow Blogger user. Why don't I throw it to, let's see who's next here. Paul, why don't you share with us?
Yeah, basically I lecture at an FE college in Norwich in Norfolk, obviously by the accent in England. It's now 5 past midnight, and it's coming towards the end of a very long evening. In terms of blogging, I haven't really gone as far into it as I probably should have done, but it is something that I'd like to start incorporating into my classes, etc. Particularly as I'm starting to move into what we regard as work-based learning, so students dispersed, adult students dispersed throughout the community, and as part of their work they have to take certain qualifications with us. And I'm just thinking that things like Blogger and Hangouts, etc., will allow me to have better lines of communication with those students. So it's as much about them talking, posting what they're doing, as much as me posting what I'm doing. So I just kind of want to get a better feel for blogging as a whole, really.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us. Tina Shea, why don't you say hi to everybody?
Hello. My name is Tina Shea Blanchett. I'm a math teacher at John Eyre High School in Marrero, Louisiana, which is right outside of New Orleans. I have been blogging for the last 3 years at blanchettblog.net. I definitely would not consider myself to be like a super blogger. I don't think I have like a lot of followers, but I do have, I have a sufficient number of people who follow, and I think more importantly, my blog has really served as like my online portfolio. So I've been able to document the things that I've been doing in my classroom. I've been able to track my own growth, and then when people ask me about the things that I'm doing, I'm able to, refer them to my blog so that they can see some of the stuff that goes on in my classroom.
That's a great idea. I love that. I'm totally stealing that idea. Thank you. Carrie, welcome.
Hi, I'm Carrie Ross from Trinity, Texas. I'm currently in Huntsville. It's a little ways outside of Houston. This is my first year actually at the school district. It's the Google App School District. I came from a small school district outside of Austin called Welder. Each campus I've been at, we've had a one-to-one program, so we have the technology. It's teaching my students the digital citizenship skills. As far as my experience with blogging, I kept a personal blog on Blogger with Google for a while, but I kind of moved towards an educational setting as I, discovered my passion for it. I currently have one right now through EduBlogs. And one of the reasons I've done this is that it allows me to have students' blogs that I can connect to my account in terms of, parents are concerned about having some students as out there in the open. So my goal is that since my campus is a Google Apps campus, is to next year to really push the getting my students out there, connecting, writing. Since I am an English teacher, it's really big for me.
And it's interesting that you bring up the digital citizenship part. I think that's a huge part of blogging and something I want to talk about as we go forward here. So make sure we talk about that. Abby, are you able to say hi?
I think so.
Awesome.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, great. I am a 5th grade teacher in Barnum, Minnesota, and we are doing next year rolling out a one-to-one iPad initiative, and so I'm really looking to get into blogging to kind of chronicle my journey. I've also started flipping my math class, and so I'd like to do some blogging about that, and then also getting my kids involved in blogging next year with the iPad.
That's awesome. I'm going to give you an overview here, sort of what I want to talk about today, because I guess what I want you leaving with is I want you to feel comfortable with Blogger. I want you to have some ideas on how you could use it, and hopefully some of the more specific things that help teachers I want to tell you about. I'll mainly be talking a lot about my own blogs that I've created as sort of like classroom blogs, but also we'll touch on student blogging and things like that toward the end. But also I want you to direct the conversation to, like I said, jump in at any time if you feel you need to ask a question or seek some clarity on things like that. So let me, before I start, getting into my little screen sharing walkthrough here, I did want to talk about how I came into blogging. And I guess it was about 3 or 4 years ago that I started my classroom blog. I am an elementary teacher, and I feel like especially with kids of a younger age, that the communication between parents and teachers is really important. And it just was never something that I was very good at. I can write really well, but I just seem to not be able to get a memo out on time to any of my parents. And that doesn't, I think that's critical, is that teachers and parents are talking to each other, and that parents know what's going on in the classroom. So I sort of started a blog and sort of taught myself how to use that. And it evolved over time into more of I like to call it a window into my classroom. A lot of teachers who I've taught to blog use it for announcements, field trip coming up, homework due tomorrow, that sort of thing. And I do that too. But some of my most well-received blog posts have been blog posts where I'm sort of reflecting on my practice and sort of giving an introspective look into the life of a teacher. I'm not doing that constantly, but I'm able to do that, and I think my parents really appreciate it. I'm in charge of their kids for a good portion of the day, and so I think it helps build that sense of community and build those connections with parents. Also, I love it as a showcase of student work, and so I'd like to show you some ways that I have put student work on my blog, and ways that I have sort of let parents see what we're doing in class and get them to really appreciate a lot of the things we do, especially a lot of the digital projects in the 21st century learning type of things that we're doing. So that's sort of why I'm blogging. My personal belief, my personal philosophy has evolved into thinking that I think all teachers should be blogging. I think all teachers would benefit from that, not just as a classroom blog, but I think as reflective blogging in terms of reflecting on your own practice, or blogging in terms of seeking professional development. I've been doing that too in my little work as a consultant, blogging for engaging educators, and sharing with my personal learning network and watching how that has grown and connecting with others through that. So I've sort of seen both sides of it, and I want to share those stories here today. I'm going to start sharing my screen here, and I want to show you some of my blogs, and I haven't started yet. Let me get this right here. And I'll show you what I've done with my blogs, and then I'll sort of do a quick walkthrough on how to make that happen. So you guys can see my screen now, right?
Yes.
Okay. So this is my main classroom blog, and it's Mr. Curran, mrcurran.blogspot.com. And again, this is what started about 3 years ago, and it's been what I've been using all throughout that time. I don't start a new one when I get a new class. I just keep it all the same. And so it's sort of become a bit of a passion of mine to post to it and to share. I've really enjoyed it, and it's been professionally fulfilling. Now, I'm not always, the most, regular blogger, but I do pretty well. I average about 10 posts or so a month. You can see my number. Oh, wait a second. I've been blogging since 2007, according to this. So impressive. I just almost tripled my blogging time there. But so I'm not going to bore you and scroll through this, but just give you an idea of what's going on, and you'll see it connects to a lot of the other things we do. I've got my pages up here with links and stuff. You can connect to our class podcast directly through the blog. You can connect to our Twitter feed and things like that. And so what I've done is I've made it like our online hub. I used to have a class web page and a blog, and then I realized, well, that the blog could really function as everything, and so it's really grown to that. Does anybody have any questions now before we go into sort of the how to set it up and some of the things that you can do as a teacher?
Using it as the classroom teacher as your means of communication, do you ever let your students post to the blog?
That is a good question. What I've done with that particular blog is that I've shared their work in terms of, if they've done a piece of writing or written a poem, or if they have movies that they've made and things like that, I share. So I don't let students post on my blog, but what we've done is we've done several blogging projects where they're posting to separate blogs, and that the blog is a part of the project in terms of, that's their record of their writing and things like that. So yeah, I definitely want to talk about student blogging as we go and show you some of those. But we've woven in the blogging into several of our student projects, and so that becomes their way. That becomes like the writing portion of the project is their blog. Like we've done one on persuasive writing, where they had to blog. We've done some social justice exercises where students posted like letters, open letters about things that they'd like to see change in our country and in our world, and then the most recent one I've been trying to put together is one about current events and kids reflecting about current events. So I definitely have kids using Blogger. We use it as under we have a classroom Google account, and so my kids post through that, and then I also have to, since I have younger kids, I also have to make sure I have parent permission to do any of that stuff. But as we were talking before we started, once you have kids over 13, they can have their own Google account and their own blog, and I'll sort of talk to you about how to manage that later on in my presentation as a teacher, how you can get involved with that. Any other questions? Okay, we're good. Definitely jump in and let us know. And if you're watching the live feed, make sure to get your questions into the comments section. I know Lisa's watching that for me. Thank you, Lisa, because I cannot, I don't think I can pull off both of those at once. Okay, so back to this idea of what you can do with Blogger. It all starts from your dashboard. And everything is centered around that. Now my dashboard shows all of my blogs that I currently have under this account. If you started one, obviously you wouldn't have any, but you would have this new blog button. And when you click that new blog button, it's going to walk you through naming your blog and choosing a domain name and choosing a template. Those are all things that, as far as I know, and Lisa, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but those are all things that you can change later on. So when you first set it up, you don't have to feel married to whatever you're choosing there in terms of a title and a template. But a couple things to know about the dashboard is your little orange pencil button is what you would press to create a new post, and I'll show you some things on posting there in a minute. And if you want to see what you've posted, this button with the little pages on it will take you to the post, the one just to the right of the new post button. And then there's a drop-down menu that gives you some more options. And then also you notice there it tracks some of your stats and how many posts you have, and if you have any comments or followers, it's all right there. So the first thing I want to talk about in terms of setting up classroom blogs and student blogs are some settings that knowing about these settings will come in very handy. And so you choose settings from the drop-down menu there in your dashboard. And here you get into you have control of a number of different things here, like I said, including the title and the address. But one of the things you have control over are the authors. So if you wanted to create a school blog and you wanted the principal and department heads and any and all teachers to be able to post to the blog, you could add them as authors and just invite them through their Google account. You can also restrict who can read it, and who can search it there in the basic settings, and giving you a little bit more control over that. Now here's one in the posts and comments section for the settings. Here's one that you're going to want to take a look at, because it doesn't default to what you might want it to, and that is the comment options. Now you can restrict the comments and require that people have to have Google accounts, or they have to be registered users, or they have to be members of the blog in order to comment. I usually allow anyone, because especially in my student blogging, what I like to do is I like to encourage them to try to get comments from other people and from readers around the world. We try to do that for our connect with an audience there as we're writing. So I usually leave that on. But the one I like to adjust is the comment moderation. I always have comment moderation on, and that means that I get an email anytime someone comments, and then I have to go in and approve or publish that comment before it gets shown on the blog. And this especially when you're opening up student blogs to student commenting, this prevents those rare occurrences of maybe silly behavior by students, but also it keeps the spammers away and things like that. Another thing that's sort of hidden here is this comment. Yes, go ahead.
Sorry, just a quick interruption, because I see a question on your Google Plus page that's kind of related. Bjorn wanted to know, what do you do to encourage commenting from both students and the public? Is there anything particular that you've done to get your students to participate more via comments?
Yeah. What I have learned about is a hashtag on Twitter called Comments for Kids with the number 4. I'm going to try to type it in here. If you add that onto a tweet about a student blog post, there's lots of people out there who follow that hashtag and who will then see it and then comment on those posts. We did and that's a great question, by the way, but we did a project on persuasive writing where kids had to pick something and then make an argument saying that one thing was better than another. And these were 4th and 5th graders. And we then tweeted about it with this hashtag, and then kids ended up getting comments from all across the country and all over the world, and they were just sort of blown away by it. And it really it really made them excited about their writing. It made them take care to do their best with their writing, and I love trying to find comments. But that hashtag is one that I've had the most help with. So hopefully that helps you answer that question, Bjorn. When it comes to public posts, I've also found Twitter to be the best way of publicizing blog posts, although I do need to use Google Plus more probably. But I have found I get comments more often when I tweet about a post than not. So hopefully that answers your question. And Abby, I'm sorry, Lisa, definitely jump in again if there's ever any questions. The one thing I did want to show you here was and I do this with my student blogs especially, but there's a way to change the message that appears when you comment. When you go to comment on a blog, you get a message, saying thanks for leaving your comment or things like that, but you can customize it so that it reminds people that these are students writing, and it reminds them to leave a positive comment. And that's this. I'm in the settings menu, and under posts and comments, the comment form message. You can change that. And I think it's just a good idea, especially if you're having students comment, because then when the window pops up that they're using to comment, it reminds them to be positive, and it reminds adults too that these are kids, and that their feedback is welcome, just as long as it's positive feedback. Continuing under the settings, when you click on mobile and email, you can create a blog post through email by sending an email, but also from your mobile device too. So they make it very, very easy to do that. The only other thing I wanted to point out is that sometimes you start a blog and you just don't want it anymore, or you want to export it to save it. All of that stuff is in the other menu, and you can delete your blog there. It just in case, or if you're creating a demo blog or things like that, that's where you would go. So make sure to interrupt with any questions for sure, and also if you're watching the live stream, to leave a comment there so that we can get.
I have another question for you now.
Oh yeah, good.
Okay, so you mentioned that you don't use Google Plus that often right now, but this is applicable across like other social media, like using Twitter as well. Terry Gray wanted to know, when do you blog versus when do you post on the Google Plus or Twitter or whatever microblogging platform?
Okay, let me see if so Terry wants to know when I use or when okay, so with my classroom, most of my stuff is done through blog. That's most of my communication. When my students blog, I'll then tweet about it. And when I blog personally through Engaging Educators, it's sort of a resource sharing blog, a commentary blog, a blog more for educational discourse. I will kind of post that everywhere to try to get more people reading that. So I'll use Twitter and Google Plus and Facebook to do that. But mainly when my kids post, or when I post, there's not a whole lot of broadcasting it out. We did start a classroom Twitter feed that you might have seen embedded on our class blog, and I've been sort of back and forth on that. In terms of, I haven't gotten it into my routine, but I have been letting students do the tweeting there. It's my account, and I own the password, and I know the password, they don't. But if we're doing something special, or if we're doing some work, I can tweet that or have them tweet that, and then I have a good number of parents of students who are on Twitter and able to follow what's going on in the class that way. But we've also connected with classes around the world through that Twitter account too. So that's been something I have to work into my routine. But we've used it sporadically. Maybe next year I would get that. Terry, hopefully I answered your question, and if I didn't, please definitely leave another comment there on my page. Anything else from the Hangout crew or from Lisa? We're good.
Yeah,
all right, awesome. I'm gonna take you back. I want to show you about changing the look. I'm sort of I like my blog to look good, and I like it to have a nice look. And I will say this: Blogger has made it really easy to customize your blog. And what I did is I change it every year. But from your other options drop-down menu on your dashboard, you choose layout, and I'll talk about gadgets and things first, and sidebars and stuff like that. But your gadgets are those things that you see on the side, and so I have several that are sort of unique to education. Like I have a magnetic poetry gadget. I have a gadget widget from a site called Library Thing that shows off some book recommendations. I have a vocabulary widget embedded on the side. But some ones that I really like to have are a search gadget, and that basically creates a Google custom search just for your blog. And again, to get a gadget, I think I forgot to mention this, you just click the Add a Gadget button there in either one of your sidebars, or depending on which arrangement you're using and how many sidebars you have, that you'll be able to find the Add a Gadget button. But I do like to have a search field, because if you make a post as you blog, it tends to get buried amongst your blog posts. So if a parent wants to find a post about such and such, or wants to find a video to show off to family members, they can just add that search box. And to add any gadget, once you click Add Gadget, you just click the little plus next to it. But a couple of the other ones that I like to have, and this aids in communication, one is the Follow by Email gadget. And I don't think that screen is showing up on my screen share. I'm going to try and get it to. But the follow, this is what the gadgets menu looks like. The Follow by Email gadget allows parents or anyone to subscribe to the blog via email. And what that means is that any time I post, an email is automatically delivered to parents with that post in it. So I don't get a ton of parents visiting my blog. Most of them get everything delivered to them by email, and so I've taken, I've made it just incredibly. It just makes it incredibly easy to get in touch with parents and to share things with them. This Follow by Email, and the way that works is you add it to your blog sidebar, and then when a parent comes and types in their email address, they're prompted to enter one of those squiggly words so that they're not spammers, and then they get a confirmation email, and then they have to click on a link in that confirmation email. So I know that ahead of time so that I can tell folks that, so they know what to expect or check their spam folders or things like that. It's all operated through a site called FeedBurner, and FeedBurner is owned by Google, and they manage the feeds. And it's so easy. And I use RSS when I subscribe to blogs, when I'm reading educational blogs. But I mean, the percentage of parents who are is very, very small. So I like making sure that they can subscribe by email. And what you'll find too is that I've got former students subscribing to my blog, and their parents subscribing to my blog, and some colleagues that I work with subscribe to my blog, and it just makes it so easy for them to do that. And I really like that option that you have there. I want to show you just for a second the layout. I think adding those gadgets is a fairly simple thing. The only thing I will say about that is that if you've got like a third-party widget, it'll take code, and it'll involve an embed code. And so what you do is you just copy the embed code, and the gadget you're going to choose is the one that says HTML/JavaScript, and you just paste it into that, and it'll put your gadget or widget into your sidebar automatically. That's like what I use for my Twitter gadget and all those other ones. They're all like third-party type of things. I mentioned changing the look, and you can. They've over the last 5 years, one of the things that has improved the most about Blogger is the number of the ways that you can design it, and not only do they have a lot, but it's also very easy. And so you're looking for the template option, and they have a whole revamped template designer, including some dynamic views to make your blog more image oriented, or sort of like more like a Tumblr or a Pinterest, but then they've got all sorts of backgrounds and designs, and then they also allow you to walk through, if you want to, a more customized, they have a customized button, and that'll walk you through a whole thing where you pick everything from the fonts, if you want to the colors of the text and things like that. So that's how I built mine, but I'm sort of intrigued by some of these dynamic views. I've seen some of those that I really like too, so maybe next year we'll get into those. But if you're having students blog and you know they're over 13 and they have their own Blogger account, this is a great way for them to personalize it, showing them how to do that, giving them ownership over that blog, and really sort of make it their own. And I think that goes a long way towards building their interest in maintaining their interest in the blog and in blogging in general. So highly recommend checking out the template designer there. Let's see, we got a little bit, just want to check for questions. We're doing good on questions. I think we're doing good on time. Anything from the crew here?
I have a quick question.
Awesome. Great.
So I have a lot of students that write. In fact, I'm going to be teaching a creative writing class next year. A lot of my students, though, they still want to use the traditional pen and paper, and I want to help push them to share their work and reflect and, invite others to reflect and share with them. Do you have any suggestions or know of any ways that I can help move my students into actually blogging and creating that blog and feeling comfortable with moving on to something that's maybe a little bit more, I guess not so interpersonal, but more like, or interpersonal to interpersonal with other people?
Yeah, I think that's a great way to do it, and I think that's a sort of an excellent goal to have. One of the things I would say is that you sort of have to baby step them into it, and so I might recommend having like a classroom blog to start with, where maybe you have a group blogging project. An example that I have would be like our current events project, and what I have kids doing is we've been learning about different current events worldwide, and then they've been reflecting on them, and so what the ultimate goal, I think, is to get them to be sort of consumers of quality information, but also creators of high quality content. And the hope being that if you can sell them on this idea of connecting with an audience and teach them how to comment themselves and teach them how to comment on each other's posts, I think that can go a long way towards getting them more interested in broadcasting for an audience. So maybe coming up with a classroom project, making all of them authors of your blog, so that they have access to that, and then teaching them how to comment, what the do's and don'ts of commenting are, and walking them through those responsible use sort of discussions that need to be had, because I think we aren't having those discussions in schools, especially in middle and high school, and that's why kids are running into problems, not understanding the concept of the digital footprint and getting into cyberbullying and things like that. It's because we aren't teaching them the right way, and that's why I think all kids should be blogging. Is so that they can learn, and so you can build sort of you have your classroom community, but then you also have your digital online community. Mm-hmm. And I think you could go a long way towards building that with a good project. And then if you've got some kids that are hooked on it, then you go and say, okay, now each one of you are going to have a blog, and it's going to be for this. Maybe it starts as an assignment and turns into kids blogging on their own, or using it reflectively without you prompting them to, and commenting, outside of school when it isn't an assignment and things like that. But I think starting small and teaching them all the steps is good. But I think once you get them doing that, they might get hooked. Another idea that comes to mind is, a lot of kids are reluctant to write, and this may sort of counteract that. But also the idea that you can put video and audio into a blog too, that it doesn't just have to be written work. I think that can go a long way into, yeah, you can put a video. I mean, you might say to a kid, you can put a video diary on your blog, or you can turn it into a video blog, but you also have to do, a written reflection piece on it as well. One of the things, Tina Shea had to go, but one of the things she mentioned earlier was the idea of the blog as the digital portfolio, and I like that idea too, because blogs are great for giving kids a space to reflect, and to give and receive comments on their work. But if you had kids posting their work online as sort of a digital portfolio, I mean, the blog could serve as a great collection of that, over time. So some days I wish I was a high school teacher, because there's a lot of different ways you can go. Carrie, do you feel like what's your major concern? Like, do you feel like your kids wouldn't be into it?
I guess my major concern is that, one, obviously they currently don't have the digital citizenship skills to facilitate owning and contributing to a blog. So that's obviously my biggest concern, is I'm going to have to go back and teach those skills that they've missed out on. But I'm actually looking forward to that, because I think it'll make me better as well and help, They're digital natives, I'm a digital native, but somewhere along the lines we've lost track of that. My biggest concern is that I think that blogging will help my students write more. I think the issue is getting them to see that it's okay to write more, and it's okay to share it with others if you do write. I think it's going to be I don't know, one of those personal battles. I don't know if it's necessarily educational as it is. Maybe it's a closed-off thought to writing and blogging as a way of, learning and reflection.
Yeah, it's a whole other sort of frame of mind, and it's a big leap to sort of put yourself out there, theoretically for the world to see, and this idea that people are going to be reading what I write now. I mean, that can be a barrier, sometimes. Now, in terms of, sort of baby stepping kids through the process, you would know better than me if this would be too, elementary. But I've known elementary teachers to do what they call paper blogging when they first start. So each kid gets a big sort of sheet of paper, and then they write a post on it, and then they trade pieces of paper, and they practice commenting on people's posts, and they just write them right underneath what they wrote on the paper as a comment, and maybe establishing a protocol that way, or what a good comment is, what a good comment looks like, but then passing that paper around and sort of getting a feel for that sort of thing too. So I guess maybe, I don't know, I haven't been in high school in a while, but they might go for that. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I did. Sorry.
Yeah, I had a quick suggestion as well. Since you can actually keep a blog private and add up to 100 users to it, I mean, you'll never need to add 100. By then, you probably should just make it public. But maybe something you could do is allow the student to keep it private to themselves for a period, maybe for the first week, and then share it with you for the second week, share it with a few other students for the third week, and that way allow them to build up content and build up their confidence, and also know that they have kind of some way to fall back, not have this like thing just be all over the web.
That's actually, I think, is a good idea, because I guess maybe a blank blog is like staring at a blank piece of paper. It's very overwhelming and scary. So that's a really nice suggestion. I like that.
That is really good. Thank you, Lisa. See, it's good we have the blogger expert here to answer those questions. And again, if you're watching on the stream and you have any questions, be sure to leave a comment. We're kind of winding down here. You know what? There's two things I haven't talked about. One are pages, which I found really helpful. These have developed over the last few years, and I have really enjoyed using them, because the drawback of using a blog as a class homepage for a while was that you didn't have anything. There was hardly anything that was static. Everything was changing, and as you blogged, it moved around, and it would move down and get buried under other things, and these pages really made it helpful, because they're static and they stay either at the top or the side of your page. And so from your menu, either the drop down on the dashboard or the left-hand sidebar, you just click the Pages menu, and you're able to create new pages right from there, and those pages stay across the top. And I know, like, WordPress blogs or edgy blogs, blogs have this feature, and so Blogger added it a little while ago, and it really ended up helping me out a lot. I know there's sort of a complicated workaround that involved, like, post-dating your blog post so that it didn't show up and then linking to it, but this has made it a lot easier. We still haven't talked about posting either, which is the so I definitely want to talk about posting before we go. With Blogger, it's super easy. You see the pencil icon everywhere on your dashboard. It's orange, but then also there's the new post button here on this menu, which is the post menu. When you are creating a new post, it's pretty much just like you would expect. You're giving it a title, and you can type it right here in the text box. I like to use the hyperlink. It's very easy to add hyperlinks, very easy to add images and videos. You can upload directly to, as long as they're not too big or something like that. But I like to put those things right in my post. You can also very easily embed stuff, like if you had a YouTube video that you wanted to watch, or wanted your students to watch. I think somebody mentioned the flipped classroom. You could easily set up your blog as your flipped classroom hub by embedding a new video every day for students to watch. But I also like to embed things using a site called Scribd, SCRIBD.com. It allows you to upload documents and then embed those documents for people to download. I've embedded Google Docs. A site called SlideShare lets you embed slideshows, Animoto and VoiceThread, all these other tools. So many of them offer the embed option, and you just paste it right into your blog post, and when you publish it, it'll show up right there. And from this screen that shows all your posts, this is where you can delete posts or edit them, or if you like schedule them ahead of time. I should talk about that. When you create a new post, over here in the right hand side, let me see, you have the post settings. People who are more organized than me would use these labels, and so that they could tag their posts so that they're easy to find later on. I don't do too much of that. But one thing I do like is the scheduling option, which allows you to set the date and time that your post will appear. So if you have some information and you have the time to blog it, but it's not really relevant for another week, you can set it in advance for it to post automatically for you. So those are some posting tips and tricks. Like I said, I write about, what's going on in the classroom. I've written blog posts about, what did I write about? Oh, once I was really behind on checking my voicemail at work, so I wrote a little apology blog post because I felt bad. Parents now get on my case if I'm not blogging enough, so they'll come up to me and tell me to blog some more, which I think is a good thing. And it's been very, very good. I have also enjoyed some of the student blogs. I'm just going to show you one student blog real quickly. And the nice thing too about using Blogger is that once you have your dashboard set up, all your blogs are right there. And so on my dashboard, which you get to through blogger.com or this little orange button with a B on it, you can see all my blogs. I have a blog for my reading class that I just use, but here's our current events blog that we did, and it's just a way for kids to get their posts out there. And so we were reading about Syria, and so they posted some questions about Syria. They made some video, sort of like video diary entries, and posted those. These kids made some audio recordings, and so we embedded that, and so it turned into a really good way to get kids engaged in current events, and a good way to get them writing. The persuasive writing piece, we call that Write to Persuade, and these are all created by kids, and hence the hideous fonts. They love that kind of stuff. But we did a little persuasive writing piece where they had to write about what they thought was best, and so we got that blogged. And I even created a little box on how to comment for people who wanted to comment. It was actually a little tournament that we made about inventions. So I really like that. In terms of management, I think we talked about sort of like adding kids as authors. Or keeping blogs private. I think those are both good ideas. I've seen teachers set up like use an RSS reader or to use an iGoogle page to set up like a portal for monitoring all their class blogs. So they not only are they moderating comments and things like that, but if you used iGoogle or your RSS reader to subscribe to every kid's blog feed, and then you get that delivered to you. Now I know as a high school teacher, if you're teaching a ton of kids, that might be hard to manage, but you could find a way in Google Reader of creating folders for each class, and then putting those feeds into that. That's a whole other presentation, I guess, but that is what I've seen teachers do to help them manage, student blogs. That way they've got a way to look and see who's blogging, who's not blogging, what those blog posts say. And again, at igoogle.com, if you've ever used that and set that up as sort of a class portal, it's very easy. I do want to throw into the chat here my classroom blog, and I'll try to get that into the stream later on. And also my sort of resource sharing blog and education blog through Engaging Educators. It's a pretty good one to subscribe to. I don't think I typed it in right because it didn't hyperlink there. But and then there's a handout for this session that is really focused more on a step-by-step way of setting up a blog. So if you still feel lost, it's a pretty hefty document, and I wrote down, I made a little URL for it. It's bit.ly/bloggeronair, and that's, you paste that into a browser, and that'll get you to the handout, a little PDF. Any questions before we wrap up?
No.
Okay. Go ahead.
Sorry. like you talked about, that you tweet out your blogs and things like that, but do you have any other suggestions to boost readership, specifically like for a classroom blog to parents and community and other educators, or even just a personal professional reflection blog in terms of, you know, getting readership, getting comments that'll help you further develop those skills?
I think the two things come to mind. One, with my parents, what I've had to do sometimes is I have to actually subscribe them to the blog in order to get them to read it. So I will sometimes I've had to like manually type in parents' addresses and say, look, I did this for you. You're going to get an email. Just click on the link. And that's been one of the things I've had to do to get them reading. Go ahead.
How receptive have they been to that?
They've been fine with that.
Okay.
Because they give me their email address anyway, and I just say, you know, look, this is what I'm going to do.
Okay.
And so be on the lookout for this email from FeedBurner or whatever. But in terms of building readership, for your own blog, Twitter, I can't underestimate the power of Twitter and the power of your personal network on there. Building your network by following a bunch of you know, colleagues or thought leaders and things like that has been the biggest way that I've found to build readership, but also through the use of hashtags and using the right hashtags. And I know that there's a guy whose Twitter handle is Cybraryman, and he has a whole listing of hashtags. And one of the things that through Engaging Educators we've done is we tweet a lot and blog a lot about urban education, and so we've got a hashtag for that, and that helps increase the readers because there's people following those. I'm not as familiar with the high school hashtags, but I know like there's an ENG chat for English teachers. That's a really good one, a good group of people. I found that participating in those chats is the best way to build your following and to build your network. And then once you have that network in place, more people are going to be reading those blogs. And even if you're tweeting about student blogs too, you're going to get more readership that way too. So my Blogger, Twitter, and my Google Reader are about my three things that go to. I can't live without those four. Other questions from folks? It's about time to wrap up. It's been a great session. I really appreciate it. Any other questions?
No, I really just say thanks. I've been thinking about what to do with blogging for a while, and you've kind of like lit a few ideas up, which combined with some stuff I picked up earlier on as well, I have to just get myself focused and get on with it, I suppose. Keep putting it off, but I have no excuse now.
Well, feel free to download that handout too, and I think that'll remind you of any of the the steps of setup. And be in touch. I'm at Engaging Ed on Twitter. And our blog is pretty good too, but you can contact us through that or through Google+. Feel free if you have any other questions. I'd be more than happy to answer. But yeah, so I hope it helped, and I hope to meet with you guys soon. Thanks so much, and thanks Lisa, and thanks Google, and thank you everybody.
Thanks, Dan. This is awesome. I learned a lot too.
Oh, great, good. Thanks.